Hello, dear viewers of my video. I hope you enjoy watching it and look forward to your feedback in the comments. My name is Christine Baxter, and for the past 6 years, I worked as a client success manager at Astrolux Consulting. It wasn't glamorous in the way people think of high-powered jobs, no helicopters or champagne contracts, but I loved what I did. I was the person who made sure our partners felt heard, seen, and supported. Whether that meant catching potential issues before they exploded or remembering to send flowers for a client's anniversary, I was the invisible glue holding relationships together. Astrolux had its quirks, passive-aggressive Slack threads, the usual office coffee drama. But one tradition I always loved was, take our daughters and sons to work day. HR took it seriously, and every April they turned the 12th floor into a playground of sorts. There were mini presentations, a career treasure hunt, and even a photo booth where kids could dress up as executives. Grant Calderon, our CEO, would gather everyone for a cheerful speech about the future and hand out tiny trophies that said things like, most likely to be CEO by 2035. This year was the first time I brought my son, Milo. He's 10. Bright, curious, socially fearless in a way I sometimes wish I was. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and ever since he started Spanish immersion school at age 6, he's had this adorable habit of switching languages mid-sentence. Mom, ¿dónde están mis zapatos? He'll yell, even when we're standing in the middle of Target. I had no idea that detail would matter. That morning, Milo practically bounced into the office, his backpack stuffed with snacks and a notebook labeled Business Observations. He insisted on wearing a tie and kept introducing himself as Christine's executive assistant to every confused adult we passed. I smiled, embarrassed but proud. But something was different this year. It wasn't just our team's kids who showed up. Some of our partners, big international clients from South America and Europe, were in town for contract renewals and decided, quite coincidentally, to attend the celebration too. And yes, they brought their children, kids from Chile, Mexico, Spain, and Argentina, all tagging along behind their impeccably dressed parents like smaller, more honest shadows. At first, it seemed like a charming cultural crossover. Milo instantly made friends with a boy named Tomas, whose father I later realized was the regional director for Kreslin Partners, our most demanding and most lucrative client. Milo and Tomas bonded over Pokémon, hot chocolate, and the discovery that they could both speak fluent Spanish. They darted through the halls in matching paper name badges, giggling in a mix of English and Espanol, completely oblivious to the weight of the suits around them. I remember thinking how lovely it was. 2 boys from different countries, meeting because of their parents' work, speaking a shared language that bypassed all the corporate nonsense. For a few hours, it really felt like the day was about what it claimed to be, a celebration of possibility. Of course, I had no idea how quickly that illusion would crack, or how something as simple as Milo's friendly chatter would turn everything upside down. By late morning, the energy in the office had shifted from playful chaos to something more settled. The initial rush of children running between departments had tapered off into smaller groups chatting in corners, coloring in HR's break room, or attempting to decipher office jargon with innocent curiosity. It was a brief, rare kind of calm. I had just returned from a tour of the supply room turned treasure hunt station when I saw Milo jogging down the hall toward me, grinning like he'd won the lottery. His clip-on tie was slightly crooked now, his sneakers scuffed from who knows what adventure, and his notebook, still clutched proudly under his arm, was bulging with stickers and drawings from the morning's activities. "Mom!" he said breathlessly, coming to a dramatic halt. "Guess what? You're not going to believe it." I smiled. "What happened this time? Did you find the mystery paperclip in the accounting cave?" "No." He looked almost offended that I'd guessed something so mundane. Tomas introduced me to his dad, like his actual dad, Señor Rivas, and I told him I'm your son, and he said he knows you. My smile flickered. "Wait, Rivas, as in Mateo Rivas." Milo nodded, completely unaware of the weight that name carried. Tomas said his dad is super important. Like, not just boss important, but flying to other countries important. He said his dad helps your company make big decisions. I blinked. He introduced you to Mateo Rivas? Uh-huh. And he even shook my hand. Milo puffed out his chest. He said I have a strong handshake for a 10-year-old. Then Tomas asked if I could come hang out with them for a while and look at something on his dad's tablet. Is that okay? I paused for a second. Rivas, one of the senior partners from Kreslin, a man who rarely showed up to anything in person, who preferred delegating from afar, and kept interactions efficient, strategic. I'd only ever seen him in one in-person meeting during last year's Q4 planning session. To say he was intimidating would be an understatement. But this was different. It was a family event. He wasn't here in a suit of armor. He was here as a dad. Sure, I said cautiously. But remember, no touching anything unless he says it's okay, all right? Some of their work is really sensitive. Milo gave me a salute. Si, senora. I laughed under my breath and watched as he ran off, weaving past desks and interns until he disappeared into the executive lounge with Tomas by his side. From the glimpse I caught, Senor Rivas was sitting back in a chair, legs crossed, arms relaxed, talking to another partner I didn't recognize. He looked up and smiled faintly when Milo arrived, nodding once in acknowledgement. I stood there for a moment longer than necessary, a strange mixture of pride and tension tightening in my chest. There was something surreal about seeing my son move so comfortably among people I still felt slightly nervous around. Eventually, I made my way back to the main floor, where some of my coworkers had gathered around the high-top table near the break room. The muffins were almost gone. Juice boxes were being rationed. The conversation had turned casual. School enrollment headaches, summer camp recommendations, kids refusing to wear sunscreen. It was one of those rare corporate moments that felt almost human. I was halfway into a conversation with Sandra from HR about elementary school reading levels when a voice pierced through the low murmur like a scalpel through silk. Christine! I turned instinctively, and my stomach dropped. It was Veronica Dames, Director of Strategic Accounts, and my immediate superior. Always poised, always precise, always vaguely impatient. She was one of those people who smiled with her mouth, but never her eyes. Today, her hair was pulled back tighter than usual, and her heels clicked with the sharpness of intent as she approached me. She didn't look pleased. "You haven't heard, have you?" she asked, her voice low but brimming with meaning. I blinked, confused. "Heard what?" Her lips thinned. "Come with me. Now." Her tone left no room for questions. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. The air around us shifted. Sandra looked away. Dan, our junior analyst, froze mid-muffin. Someone's kid even stopped chewing their granola bar. All eyes quietly followed as Veronica spun on her heel and began marching toward the corridor that led to her office. I stood there for a beat, frozen. "What's going on?" I called after her, my voice softer than I intended. She didn't respond, just kept walking. I turned, my eyes instinctively searching for Milo. I found him easily. He was still with Senor Rivas and Tomas, leaning slightly over the table as if listening intently to something. From this distance, I couldn't hear a word. I could only see their faces. Rivas was smiling, Tomas looked amused, and Milo looked like he was telling them a story. I almost called out to him. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted one more moment of reassurance before walking into whatever this was, but I didn't. I squared my shoulders, nodded to the others like everything was fine, and followed Veronica down the hallway. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the way the lights flickered slightly overhead, in the way people avoided looking directly at me, in the sudden silence that seemed to follow me like a shadow. I had no idea what I was about to walk into, but I knew one thing for certain. Whatever it was, it had already started. The door slammed behind me harder than it needed to. Veronica didn't sit. She didn't offer me a chair. She didn't even pretend this was going to be a conversation. "I'm going to be blunt, Christine," she snapped, arms crossed like a judge delivering a sentence. "We're terminating your employment, effective immediately." My breath caught. "What?" "You brought your son here today, on a day we specifically host for families, and somehow, he found a way to interfere with our most delicate, high-value client." I stared at her, stunned. "You're firing me? Because Milo talked to a client's kid?" "No," she hissed. "Because your son engaged directly with partners from our Spanish team without permission, without supervision, and allegedly shared information he shouldn't have even been exposed to." My mouth went dry. "What are you talking about? He was with Tomas and Senor Rivas. They seemed completely fine." "They weren't fine," she snapped. "They filed a complaint with legal 15 minutes ago. According to their report, your son sat with them, spoke to both partners, one of whom is a government liaison from Madrid, and made inappropriate comments about their project timelines." I blinked. "Project timelines? He's 10. He doesn't even know what that means." "They said he repeated things he shouldn't have known, sensitive terms, that he implied they were rushing the contract to avoid oversight." She said the last word like it burned her mouth. "They are furious. Furious, Christine. And do you know what I have to say to them in our follow-up meeting this afternoon?" I opened my mouth to speak, but she wasn't finished. "I have to explain why an employee's child was apparently briefed on confidential client matters. Why our integrity," her voice cracked slightly, "is being questioned by one of our most valuable global partners because of a child's careless comments." I felt the blood drain from my face. He was with them for 10 minutes, at most. They were laughing. "You don't get it," she said coldly. "It doesn't matter what you saw. It matters how they interpreted it. This is beyond HR, beyond PR. If this blows up, we lose the renewal." "Veronica, please," I said, trying to hold on to something rational. "At least let me talk to Milo. Let me find out what he said, if anything. He might have misunderstood something." She raised an eyebrow, amused in the cruelest way. "Oh, by all means. Let's get the 10-year-old to explain international client relations." I didn't even ask for permission. I turned and walked back into the hallway, the pit in my stomach growing by the second. I found Milo right where I'd left him, still seated next to Tomas, drawing little spaceships on a napkin, while Senor Rivas scrolled through something on his phone. When Milo saw me, he smiled and hopped off his chair. "Mom, are we going home already?" "Hey," I said gently, crouching to his level. I just need to ask you something, okay?" His face immediately went serious. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I lied. "I just need you to tell me what you talked about with Senor Rivas and his friend." "Oh, they asked what you do, so I said you work with clients and make their businesses better. Then they asked if I liked visiting your office and if I ever hear you talk about work at home." He shrugged. "I said sometimes you're on the phone a lot, but I didn't say anything weird, I promise." My throat tightened. "Did you tell them anything about projects or timelines?" Milo frowned. "No, I don't know what timelines even means." "And you didn't repeat anything you heard me say?" He shook his head, wide-eyed. "No, they just laughed with me. They said it was nice that I speak Spanish, that's all." I looked up at Senor Rivas, who was now watching us. Calm, unreadable. He didn't look furious. He didn't look like a man who'd just lodged a complaint that cost me my job. "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered, trying not to cry as I hugged him. "Go sit with Tomas again for a minute, okay?" Milo gave me a hesitant look, but nodded and returned to his seat. When I walked back into Veronica's office, she was already on the phone. "She's back," she said curtly, not bothering to cover the receiver. "Good, because I want her badge deactivated by end of day." "I talked to him," I said, stepping forward. "He said nothing inappropriate, nothing about timelines or oversight or anything remotely confidential." Veronica slammed the phone onto its cradle. "And we're supposed to take the word of a child over that of two seasoned international executives?" "Yes," I said, fire finally rising in my throat. When that child has no motive, no access, and nothing to gain or lose. Veronica narrowed her eyes. This isn't a debate, Christine. The partners filed a complaint, legal is responding, and I'm cleaning it up. This is the end of the discussion. And just like that, my 6-year career at Astrolux evaporated. Because my son dared to speak to the wrong people at the wrong time. Because someone decided a child was the perfect scapegoat. And because someone else didn't want me to ask the most important question of all. What exactly did they think he heard? I spent the rest of that day in a daze, packing my things into a cardboard box, while Milo sat silently by my desk, his legs swinging from my swivel chair. He didn't understand why everyone was looking at us like we'd done something wrong, and I didn't know how to explain it to him without falling apart. They didn't even let me finish the day. Veronica had someone from HR escort me to the lobby like I was a threat. No exit interview, no thank you. Just a hollow apology and a strained reminder that today's events created a liability for the firm. It wasn't until we were in the car, Milo in the back seat with his headphones on, that he said something that changed everything. "Mom?" he asked. "Why was that other man talking so fast in Spanish?" I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean?" "The one in the blue suit, not Tomas's dad. The other one." He was mad. He was saying things like, "reemplazar contratos," and "antes de que lo noten." I didn't understand everything, but he said Astrolux doesn't read the fine print. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Wait, say that again?" Milo frowned, trying to remember. He said they're going to switch the contracts before anyone notices, that the new language would favor them. Something about hiding the clause in the appendix, and that by the time Astrolux figures it out, it'll be too late. My heart thudded so loud, I thought it might echo off the windshield. He wasn't making this up. His Spanish wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. He'd been in immersion school for 4 years. And he remembered phrases that mattered. Reemplazar contratos. Replace the contracts. Antes de que lo noten. Before they notice. He had overheard something real, something serious. My first instinct was to fix it. I thought about driving straight back to the office, demanding to see Veronica, to tell her what Milo heard, to warn her that the partners weren't just filing a complaint, they were covering their tracks, that Milo hadn't interfered, he'd caught a glimpse of the truth. But then I remembered the way Veronica looked at me, the way she dismissed me without a second thought, the way she didn't even ask what really happened. They didn't care about the truth. They cared about blame. I parked outside our apartment and just sat there for a long time, staring at the dashboard while Milo finished his juice box in the back seat. The anger came slowly. First, it was a low simmer, just beneath the grief. But then I started to feel it rise. Sharp, cold, clean. They fired me without cause. Publicly. Embarrassingly. They destroyed my reputation over a child's conversation, when that conversation turned out to be the most important warning they'd ever get. They didn't want to protect the company. They wanted a scapegoat. And now, they wouldn't get my silence. I walked upstairs with the box in my arms and my jaw set like stone. By the time I put Milo in front of the TV with a snack and turned on my laptop, I knew exactly what I was going to do. If they didn't want to listen to the truth, then I would show them exactly what ignoring it would cost. The realization came like a quiet thunderstorm in the middle of the night. You know it's coming, you can feel it in your bones, and yet it still startles you when the lightning finally strikes. Milo's words, almost forgotten in the blur of my firing, echoed relentlessly in my head. They said they're going to switch the contracts before anyone notices. Astrolux doesn't read the fine print. For a 10-year-old, Milo had a shockingly accurate memory when it came to things that didn't concern him. Cartoon theme songs? Forget it. But a tense exchange between businessmen speaking rapid Spanish? Somehow, it embedded in his brain like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And I had solved it. Or at least, I saw the shape of it. The Spanish partners weren't just visiting for the celebration. They had an agenda, and the timing wasn't a coincidence. The new contract was about to be signed. I hadn't seen the latest version, but I'd worked long enough in that department to know how easily language can shift in legal documents without raising flags. If someone wanted to slip in a clause, something subtle but powerful, it could be done in a single sentence, a sentence that transferred control, a sentence that erased safeguards, a sentence that locked us into a future we didn't agree to. My instinct was to save them, to save Astrolux, even after being humiliated, even after Veronica dragged me out with the grace of a bouncer at last call. I still cared. Not about her, not even about the job anymore, but about the people, the clients I'd nurtured, the coworkers who had trusted me, the company I'd once believed in. There was only one person left who had the power to intervene. Gideon Sharp, the CEO, the founder, the one man in the building who didn't have to ask permission to hit pause. I didn't have access to him, not officially, but I knew his routine. Every Monday, like clockwork, he arrived at 8:30 sharp and went straight to his office on the top floor before meetings began. No assistants, no entourage, just him and a cup of espresso in a black travel mug. For 15 minutes, his schedule was always open, unreachable, uninterrupted, alone. It was my only chance. So I dressed in the same business casual I used to wear when leading client pitches, tied my hair back into a confident knot, and walked into the building like I still belonged there. My ID badge hadn't been deactivated yet. Either HR hadn't gotten around to it, or Veronica thought I'd be too ashamed to come back. That was her mistake. She thought shame was stronger than clarity. It wasn't. I rode the elevator to the 17th floor, the executive floor, my heart pounding with every ding. I kept my eyes forward, my posture firm, and when I stepped out into the hushed hallway lined with frosted glass and silence, I could feel the weight of what I was about to do settle into my bones. I wasn't here to beg for my job. I was here to warn someone before it was too late. The receptionist desk was empty. The lights in the offices were dimmed. I checked my watch. 8:22 a.m. I had time. I sat on a low leather bench near the corner conference room, pretending to scroll through emails on my phone while every nerve in my body braced for Gideon's arrival. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd explain it without sounding like I was spiraling. I'd start with facts, use Milo's observation as a lead-in, then pivot to what it meant, what it could mean. I only needed him to delay the signature, just until the legal team could re-review the appendix, just enough time to stop a mistake that would cost the company everything. And then, heels, click, click, click. Not the soft-soled shoes of Gideon. These were deliberate, aggressive. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. Veronica Dames, Director of Strategic Accounts. The woman who fired me, shamed me, discarded me. She froze mid-step when she saw me sitting there. Her expression didn't betray a single flicker of surprise, only fury. "Well, well," she said in a voice like a scalpel. "Someone's trespassing." I stood slowly. "I need to talk to Gideon." "No, you don't." She took a step closer. Her heels echoed like gunshots against the marble floor. "You've already done enough damage, Christine." "There's something wrong with the Kreslin contract," I said. "Something was changed. I believe their team." "I don't care what you believe," she cut in. "You are not an employee here. You are not a consultant. You are not even a guest." "I'm trying to protect the company. Don't you want to know if someone's manipulating?" "No," she said, lowering her voice to a hiss. "What I want is for you to disappear before you embarrass yourself even further." "I don't care about my embarrassment. This is about a partner exploiting a language shift to gain control of our client rights." "Do you hear yourself?" She laughed, sharp and condescending. "You sound unhinged. You want to speak to the CEO because your 10-year-old son heard someone whispering in Spanish? He heard what they didn't want anyone to hear, and now they're spinning a complaint to cover it up." Veronica narrowed her eyes. "I am warning you. You go near Gideon Sharp with this nonsense, and I will make sure the only recommendation he hears about you is that you are unstable and a liability." I didn't flinch. Then I hope he hears it from both of us, because I'll be right here when he walks in. You're delusional if you think he'll waste a second on you, she hissed. You don't matter. I leaned in slightly, just enough so she could feel the certainty in my voice. Then why are you so afraid of me talking to him? Her jaw twitched. Bingo. She wasn't trying to protect him. She was trying to protect herself. And that meant I was closer to the truth than even I realized. She stormed off toward her office, her heels striking the tile like firecrackers. I sat back down, adjusted my blazer, and stared at the elevator doors. Because when Gideon stepped out, I was going to have one shot, and I was ready. At some point, I stopped looking at the clock. Time didn't mean much anymore. Not when I'd been sitting alone on the executive floor for what felt like hours, watching the elevator doors like they might part to reveal salvation. Or disappointment. Probably both. I'd replayed the moment I'd stand up and speak to Gideon Sharp 1,000 times in my head. Each version sounded worse than the last. What if he brushed past me without stopping? What if he remembered only the HR report, the complaint, and not the years I spent keeping client accounts from collapsing? What if I was too late? By 8:47, my resolve had begun to crack. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe showing up here, sitting in this stark, whisper-quiet hallway, like an uninvited ghost, was the desperate move of a disgraced employee? Maybe I'd let Milo's words fill my head with paranoia and built a conspiracy out of playground conversation. Or maybe, I looked toward the exit, maybe it was time to go. I reached for my bag, letting my fingers close around the strap, when I heard it. A door opening. Not the elevator. The private door. The one only a few people on this floor ever used. I turned instinctively, and there he was. Gideon Sharp. He stepped out of his corner office without fanfare, holding a matte black travel mug in one hand, his other hand scrolling through his phone. His posture was calm, collected. The morning light from the east-facing windows cast soft gold on his tailored charcoal suit. He hadn't seen me yet, but I saw him, and I froze. Because for all the confidence I'd rehearsed, all the certainty I had walking into the building this morning, seeing him in the flesh made my pulse hammer with doubt. He looked up. Our eyes met. He slowed his stride. "Christine," he said, voice as even and unreadable as I remembered it. "Mr. Sharp," I managed. "Gideon?" He raised an eyebrow, not unkindly, but clearly surprised. I thought, "You'd left the company." "I did," I said. "On Friday." He nodded once, slowly. "Yes. That memo crossed my desk. A client complaint involving your child?" His tone was calm, almost detached, but I caught the faintest flicker of curiosity. Or maybe skepticism. I took a breath. There was no time for hesitation. "I know this is unusual," I began, forcing my voice into steadiness. "But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't serious. I need 5 minutes of your time. That's all." He glanced at the hallway behind me, calculating, probably trying to decide whether this would be worth the detour. "I wouldn't ask," I said, stepping forward, "if I wasn't sure it mattered." He folded his arms, mug still in hand. "All right, talk." I nodded. "My son, Milo, he's 10. He's been in Spanish immersion school since he was 6. He's fluent. During the Take Our Kids to Work Day, he was talking to the children of our visiting Spanish partners, Crestland's executives. While he was with them, he overheard one of the partners speaking Spanish on a call. Milo said he heard phrases like, reemplazar contratos, replace the contracts, and antes de que lo noten, before they notice. Gideon's expression shifted slightly, more alert, less dismissive. I continued. Milo told me they were talking about hiding a clause in the appendix, about how Astrolux doesn't read the fine print. He didn't understand the significance. But I did. I managed the Crestland account for 3 years. I know how they negotiate. I've seen them push language late in the game. If they buried something this time, something big, we won't find it until it's already signed. He was quiet. No nodding, no skepticism, just listening. I took a breath. Look, I know I've been dismissed, that I'm not part of this anymore, And I understand how it sounds. A fired employee showing up to wave around something her kid overheard. But this isn't about me. I wouldn't risk humiliating myself unless I was certain this was real. There's something in that contract you haven't seen yet. Still, he didn't speak. The silence between us stretched. Long. Heavy. When he finally responded, his voice was low. "So what do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "Except this. Before you sign anything in that meeting, read the contract yourself. Every page. Especially the appendix. Make sure it's what we agreed to, that's all." Gideon looked at me for a long time, and in that moment, I didn't see the powerful CEO or the man at the top of a billion-dollar company. I saw a man doing fast math in his head, calculating risk, reward, fallout. He nodded once. "I'll read it," he said. "Carefully, personally, before anything's signed." Relief surged through me so fast I nearly staggered. "Thank you," I said, voice quiet. He paused at the hallway corner. "If your son was right," he added, "then someone else in this building is about to have a very bad day." And with that, he disappeared behind the door to the executive boardroom. And I finally exhaled. The days following my unexpected return to the Astrolux building unfolded in a strange blur. Not loud or dramatic, just eerily quiet. Like the air after a storm, when everything's still damp, but the thunder has rolled away. I tried to focus on moving forward, on rebuilding a routine. I helped Milo with his school project on endangered frogs. I reorganized our spice cabinet twice, and even planted a few basil seeds in a chipped ceramic pot on the windowsill. Anything to occupy my hands while my brain kept running loops around one single memory. Gideon's promise that he'd personally review the contract. I didn't expect to hear back. Let's be honest, CEOs don't usually follow up with former employees, especially ones dismissed under unfortunate circumstances. And Veronica? I was sure she'd spun a whole new version of events to shield herself before the ink even dried on the HR report. I kept checking my inbox, though, kept my phone nearby, even though it never rang with any number I recognized. By Thursday morning, I had almost convinced myself to stop waiting. I had started combing through job listings in earnest. I updated my resume, removing Astrolux with a quiet bitterness, and resisted the urge to add a footnote explaining what really happened. The worst part wasn't the termination itself, it was the vacuum afterward. The silence. The knowing that you gave everything to a place that discarded you the second you became inconvenient. So when my phone rang that afternoon, I almost didn't answer. It was an unknown number. My gut said spam. But something, some buried instinct, told me to pick up. I pressed the green button and raised it to my ear. "Hello? Christine Baxter?" the voice asked, low and even. I recognized it instantly. "Mr. Sharp?" I said, stunned. "Yes," came the reply. "It's Gideon." I stood up without thinking, as though my body needed to physically react to how fast my heart was starting to race. Is everything all right?" I asked, already gripping the edge of the table. He paused, then spoke. "You were right." The world seemed to tilt for a second. I gripped the back of the chair tighter. "About the contract?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," he said. "We reviewed it, every word, just like you said. Appendix D contained language that was not present in previous drafts. It was inserted with new formatting, embedded deep into the legalese, where it looked like a simple update to compliance structure. My throat went dry. My eyes burned. They added a clause shifting partial ownership of several client deliverables to their Spanish parent entity, he continued, his voice like a steady stream of water over stone. That one sentence would have given them control of our analytics structure in the EU and retroactive access to sensitive licensing frameworks. I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. "If Milo hadn't overheard what he did," Gideon said, "and if you hadn't connected the dots and warned me, we would have signed away the foundation of a quarter of our core business model." I felt the breath catch in my lungs. We confronted them mid-meeting, he added. They denied it, of course, said it was a formatting error, a clerical oversight. But when we showed them the archived copy of last month's version, the one your team worked on, there was no plausible excuse left. He took a beat. We terminated all ties with them immediately. Our legal team is already cleaning up the fallout. I sat back down, slowly, like my knees had forgotten how to carry weight. I don't even know what to say, I murmured. You don't have to say anything, he replied. You did more for this company in one moment of integrity than some people have in a decade of paychecks. Silence settled between us, but not the uncomfortable kind. This was something different. There's one more thing, Gideon continued. Your dismissal. It was a mistake. Veronica handled it poorly. She acted without due process, and, well, I'll just say it plainly. She let pride override judgment. She didn't want to listen. Of course she didn't. That had been clear the moment she dragged me out of the office like I was a security threat. I've already spoken to HR, he said. Your termination file is being reviewed, formally, and if you ever decide to return, if you want to return, there will be a place for you here. A better one. I didn't answer right away. Because it wasn't that simple. I wasn't sure if I could walk back through those doors. Not after how easily they turned on me, how easily I was erased. But there was something else too. Validation. For the first time since that awful Friday, I felt seen. I felt heard. I hung up the phone in a haze, my fingers trembling, and found Milo sitting cross-legged in the living room, coloring a dragon with neon pink scales. He looked up. Who was that? I walked over and kissed the top of his head. Just someone calling to say thank you. He grinned. Was it about the secret stuff I heard? I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. Yeah, baby, I said. Hi, it turns out that secret stuff saved a lot of people. There are moments in life when the air feels thick with memory, when every step you take is shadowed by the ghost of who you were the last time you stood in the same place. That was what it felt like walking back into the Astrolux office, the same scent of industrial lavender and fresh print paper, the same glass doors that opened with a familiar hiss, the same polished concrete floors that used to echo beneath my heels when I was someone with a badge and a future here. Now I was technically a consultant. Gideon had offered the position with grace, and I'd accepted, cautiously, quietly, because I needed to see something through. Not for revenge, not even for closure, but because if I didn't help dismantle the wreckage Kreslin had almost left behind, I'd never forgive myself. Still, walking through that space, knowing I had been fired for protecting the company, was like brushing against bruises that hadn't healed. Eyes followed me down the hallway, some confused, some openly curious. No one asked questions aloud. They didn't need to. In the corporate world, gossip spreads through glances and whispers behind coffee cups. I felt it trail behind me like static electricity. I reached the temporary guest office HR had assigned me. It was smaller than my old one, windowless, impersonal. A holding pen. But I didn't mind. I sat down, opened my laptop, and began combing through the new contract templates legal had asked me to review. That's when I heard it. Click, click, click. The unmistakable sound of Veronica's heels. I didn't look up until she was standing in the doorway, arms folded like she was posing for a painting of herself as corporate judgment incarnate. Well, she said with a mock-sweet smile, if it isn't our returning heroine. I didn't stand. I didn't offer her a seat. Good morning, I said calmly, keeping my fingers on the keyboard. She stepped in a few inches farther, voice sharper now. Don't misunderstand your presence here, Christine. This is a temporary arrangement. You're not staff. You're not leadership. You're here to smooth over a situation you caused. I looked up finally. That situation, as you call it, nearly cost the company millions. She blinked. Just for a second. But I saw it. The flicker of doubt. Then she leaned forward, voice dropping to a hiss. You got lucky, that's all. But don't pretend you're back in power, you're not. This place doesn't need martyrs. It needs professionals. Before I could answer, she pivoted and walked out, her heels announcing each step like a battle cry. I didn't chase her, I didn't respond. I just went back to reviewing the appendix clauses like I hadn't been visited by a woman who once thought she'd buried me. 2 hours later, I found myself sitting in the executive boardroom. Gideon had personally invited me to the weekly senior staff meeting, an invitation that arrived in my inbox with no explanation, only a subject line. Sit in, your voice matters. So I came. The boardroom was filled with faces I knew, though many avoided my gaze. Veronica was already seated when I entered, flipping through her notes like the meeting was a formality she'd already conquered. She didn't even glance at me. Gideon arrived last. As always, he moved without hurry, but with purpose. When he sat at the head of the table, the room stilled. Phones were silenced, pens lowered. He took a sip of coffee, then looked around. I'll be direct, he began. This past week, we narrowly avoided a disaster, one that would have cost this company tens of millions of dollars and crippled our ability to manage our own client data for years. No one moved. Gideon continued. This crisis was not prevented by our contract team, not by our analysts, not even by our legal department. It was prevented by someone who had already been fired. The air in the room shifted. Hard. He turned his gaze toward Veronica. This company punished someone for speaking the truth, he said, for listening carefully, thinking critically, and raising a red flag when others dismissed the danger. Veronica's face was frozen, pale. She did her job when others failed to do theirs, and she was silenced for it. Gideon's voice remained calm, but his words cut deeper than any raised voice could have. We've reviewed every step of that decision, and the result is clear. He turned fully to Veronica now. Veronica Dames, your actions showed not only poor judgment, but a reckless disregard for the welfare of this company. You acted to protect your ego instead of your team. You refused to investigate. You chose image over truth. She opened her mouth. Gideon, You're being terminated, he said, unmoved. Effective immediately. Security has been notified. HR will escort you out. The silence was deafening. Her mouth opened and closed, but nothing came. She stood, gathering her papers with shaking hands, no longer the queen of the boardroom, just a fallen figure in expensive shoes. She left the room without looking at me. No one stopped her. Gideon waited a beat before continuing. Let this be a reminder. We are not a company that punishes integrity. If someone sees danger, I want them to speak, loudly, even if it's inconvenient, especially then. He looked at me. And that includes consultants. I nodded once. No smile, no gloating, just quiet, settled peace. I had lost everything once, only to gain back something even better. A voice that couldn't be dismissed. For the rest of the day, I walked through the halls of Astrolux like I had stepped into an alternate universe. It wasn't that anyone welcomed me with open arms. There were no balloons or speeches or confetti in the break room. But something had changed. The energy. The way people looked at me. Their eyes no longer held the detached pity I'd seen before. There was something else now. Recognition. And perhaps something even rarer in this building. Respect. I was gathering my things in the temporary guest office when I got a message from Gideon's assistant asking me to come up to his office. Not urgent, she said. Just a moment of his time. I tried not to read too much into it. Maybe it was a formality. Maybe he wanted to thank me again or discuss next steps. But when I walked through the glass doors of the executive suite, a strange calm settled over me. No fear, just clarity. He greeted me at the door himself. Christine, he said, standing up from his desk with a rare, soft smile. Come in. His office was like something out of a modern design magazine. Sleek lines, muted colors, soft wood and steel. It looked like a place where very serious things happened. And yet, today, it felt almost personal. I sat across from him, not on edge like last time, but grounded. Ready. He leaned forward, hands folded, elbows resting lightly on his desk. "I owe you more than a thank you," he began. "You already gave me more than I expected," I replied gently. "You listened." "No," he said firmly, shaking his head. "You deserve more than that. What you did, what you risked, very few people would have had the nerve. You came back after being publicly humiliated, after being thrown under the bus, not to fix your reputation, but to fix a mistake that wasn't even yours. And it saved this company." I swallowed hard. He continued, "You could have walked away. Let us sign that contract, watch the fallout from a distance. But you didn't. You came back into the lion's den and told the truth, even when you knew it might not matter." My throat tightened. I hadn't expected this. Not like this. He opened the drawer beside him and pulled out a white envelope, placing it between us. "I also haven't forgotten Milo." That stopped me. What?" He smiled. The boy who accidentally heard the most important conversation of the year. The one who, without even realizing it, gave us the warning we needed. I know he didn't mean to be a hero, but he was. And heroes deserve something more than applause. I slowly opened the envelope and pulled out the documents inside. Plane tickets, hotel bookings, tour vouchers. "Barcelona?" I breathed. A 7-day trip, first-class flights, a suite at a boutique hotel in the heart of the city, museum passes, a private Spanish cooking class. It's all there. Just you and Milo. No work, no emails, no interruptions. I stared at the papers, the shock making it hard to breathe. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I wanted to." Tears pricked the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't ready to cry. Not here. Not yet. "There's more," he added, sitting back again. "You may have heard we're in the process of hiring a new director of strategic accounts." I nodded. "I've made my decision, but we'll need time to vet candidates, run interviews, clear approvals." He looked directly at me. "Until then, I want you to lead the department." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "I want you to serve as interim director," he said. "And if, at the end of this transition period, you find the role suits you, you can have it permanently. No more consulting, no more guest passes. You'd be reinstated, fully, with authority, with team oversight, with everything you were denied before." My mouth opened, but no sound came. "This isn't just about making things right," he said. "This is about recognizing who you are, who you've always been. You were overlooked, but not anymore." The room fell silent. I looked down at the envelope again. The Barcelona trip. The future laid out before me like a map I never expected to read. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. He smiled again, the rare softness returning. "Say yes."